Good morning. Welcome to this simple space. Thanks for joining me again. I hope your year has started off well and that 2021 is going to be hopeful for you, and that you've already maybe made some plans to empower and enlarge your journey this year. So I just want to continue to sit with you this year, and we've been doing this for almost, half a year now, probably at least, and just to inspire, to empower, and to encourage you. So as I just kind of bring some things to you over the next few weeks, I hope that it'll help you. I hope there'll be something, a quote, a book that I recommend, maybe a concept or a precept that God is speaking through me to you that will help you to expand and enlarge some things in your life this year. And that's actually what I want to talk about. You know, life equity is a term that I really love. I read a book years ago with U.S. Congressman Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee, and I would highly recommend the book if you could still find it. I'm not sure if it's in print still, but it was called Life Equity, and there were some really good things in there that helped me as a woman. This has been like a decade ago, but it helped me to understand what true balance was. I think as women specifically, we really get off a little bit, not off, I can say that better. We get a little bit scattered with trying to balance the kids, the family, the marriage, the work, and then add purpose. Stephanie, on top of that, what are you talking about? Well, and I think we expect balance to mean that everything is smooth and tranquil, and that if we're unbalanced, if there's ever chaos or uncertainty in our life, that means we're not balanced. And so what I want to focus in with you over the next few weeks is to hopefully give you a different picture of that. That life equity is something that we can actually build upon, because equity is often described as accumulated value. Don't you love that? Life equity, so specifically life equity, is described as accumulated value. So it's not something that you have and then there it is. You have something of value, you discover it, and then the equity is that it begins to accumulate value as you use it, as you expand it, as you enlarge it. So in terms of life, accumulated skills and experience become the commodities of value that can be transferred and applied in tangible and varied environments. So this is going to be in our show notes that are attached to this. So be sure to read that. But I love the concept of varied environments. I just mentioned, you know, that balance. We struggle with family, business, marriage, purpose. Varied environments, wouldn't you say? But your value, your life equity can be transferred into any of those areas at any time. It doesn't have to be this or that, either or. It can be this and that, okay? It can be family and career. It can be family and your purpose, your ministry, whatever that would entail. So I was reading in Isaiah 54:2, and this has been something that sat with me for a while too. Things really, for me, I crock-pot a lot of things. So for those of you that are really more of a highly achieving D personality, that you're like, get to the point, get it over with, get it done, move on, man, that's amazing. And I'm going to try to get to a point for those of you that are like that. But for me, it's crock-potting. I take things and they just grow and they crock-pot as I think about them. And so the verse reads like this: enlarge the place of your tent, stretch forth the curtains of your habitations, spare not, lengthen your cords and strengthen your stakes. So what's jumped out to me there is there are 4 pieces of this. As God is asking us to do this, and I take this personally as something he's speaking to me, that if I'm going to enlarge, I'm going to stretch, I'm going to lengthen, and I'm going to strengthen. But these are 4 areas. And as I began to sit through this, I realized that, you know, true balance in life is understanding the value of my equation. Okay? We think about equity, that makes you think of equal sign, that makes you think of balance. For an equation mathematically or scientifically to be balanced, there has to be components on both sides of that equation. And equations are balanced not out of things being smooth and easy, but out of understanding the different components of both sides of that equation. So I'm hoping to help you unpack that over the next few weeks. As we move into 2021, this is where I've been sitting, that I sense that humanity in general, globally, that we have been driven into a state of isolation, protection, self-preservation. I mean, and it's understandable. Definitely not deniable and definitely not criticizing that. But what's happening is that's forcing us inward. And instead of moving through our design And enlarging, it's creating an unbalanced equation. Because when we're moving through our design, we are outward, we are moving out, we are looking out, we're fencing out. Remember those terms we've used over past episodes. But when we begin to isolate, we automatically begin to become inward focused and protective, because that's just how we are as humans. But then we get out of balance, because I believe that a simple equation is creation equals capacity. That is the balance of life equity in your life. That there is a creation side of you and there's a capacity side of you. You can't have one without the other, but there has to be a balance in that. That's where your balance comes from. Not, am I spending the same amount of time with my family as I am with my career? Am I spending the same amount of career time as I am in ministry opportunities? It's not balancing the tangibles of each thing. It's balancing the equation of creating and having capacity for that, okay? So that's what I want to get into. So this year, what I've been asking is, where is my equation not working? In other words, what is God putting his finger on in my life? And when I look at that, and let's just say in these 4 categories, enlarging, stretching, lengthening, and strengthening, where is God simply putting his finger on and saying, Stephanie, I need you to step into this. Your equation is a little unbalanced right now, because this is an area we need to work on together. So I feel like that as I ask God for that, if I ask God, let me say that 5 times. If I ask God to put his finger on something, to speak into my life. How many of you say that? God, I just need you to speak to me. That's amazing, because that's what he wants. But we have to realize that when I ask God to speak into my life, I need to be ready to engage with the creation that he's working on in my life, because God doesn't speak without creating. So if I'm going to ask that, if I'm going to ask for him to speak and to change in my life, then I have to be ready to engage in that. So creation, though, requires capacity. So I think that if we just look into this very briefly, we'll see that if creation equals capacity, that if we're going to enlarge on one side of the equation, that means we're going to see beyond our look. And we're going to have to begin to step back into that dreaming part of with God. If we're going to enlarge, we have to see it first, right? And then we're going to stretch. Our opportunities become birthed beyond our ability. We don't just do things that we know we can do. We begin to stretch to look for opportunities that align with that dream that we right now can't do. Okay, so that's the creation side of the equation. That is something that we do hidden in our time with God. There's not a lot of publicity to that. There's a very much a root maintenance system of that, right? The root of your purpose is growing right there. Then we go and balance that equation, because you can't have that by itself and be balanced, because there's emptiness on the other side of that equation. To have the things that God is dreaming through you, asking you to stretch into, requires capacity, right? So we live in a natural world of time and space and mass, and I'm not a scientist, so you know what I'm talking about. So for me to take this notebook, if I think I want to put this notebook someplace and I think about where I want to put it, well, there has to be space, right? There has to be capacity ready for me to set this notebook on. Does that make sense? So it's all about, as I am creating, I also have to make sure that I have the capacity for that. So we're going to talk about those 3 things, or 4 things. Capacity then would be lengthening and strengthening. To balance that equation, I'm going to have to maybe add new skills that will help me stretch to those opportunities. And then strengthening is sharpening those skills and those strengths that we all have, that we know are there, that we use that for foundations of growth. So I want to unpack this together in our simple space over the next 3 or 4 weeks. I hope you'll join me again. Subscribe to this channel. Be sure to hit that notification bell, because I want us together to connect and begin to unpack, what does life equity mean? Let's look at this differently. Let's not be afraid to see something different and to explore some frontiers of thought based and aligned on God's word. Look at Isaiah 54:2 this week. Look at it in several translations. Ask God to speak to you about what it means to you. What other scriptures bring and evoke this equation of equity in your life, that you have value and there's commodity that God wants to transfer through you. Collectively, as we take inventory of this, I believe, and this is the heart of God, that we're going to be able to impact our communities in a season of hurt and uncertainty. We all have people that we know right now that are hurting. Instead of just staying in our own hurt, because all of us have experienced it, let's purpose collectively to begin to balance this equation and step out into a hurting world and do what we can every day in small, simple steps to add value with our value to the people around us. So my prayer in this season that I've written down for myself that I look at every day, I'm going to read it to you because it is a prayer that I speak to God, because it's come from this in my life and it's come from my time with God. But I want you to hear my heart as we step into the next few weeks together. God revealed to me the next part of your dream that you are asking me to see so that I may stretch towards those opportunities, that I can become aware of the skills and the abilities that I will need to add and which skills and abilities I will need to sharpen in order to expand the dream for your glory. And remember this, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. When you step into your community, and that includes your family, you're a leader. Ladies, gentlemen, you're a leader. And leadership isn't corporate, leadership is personal. We influence through our relationships by our design. And leadership is that transferable commodity. That's the vehicle that you transfer your value to somebody else. So I hope that you'll come back with me next week as we sit together and begin to unpack both sides of this equation in some more detail. For those of you that this is all you need to run with it, man, I appreciate you joining. For those of you who need a little bit more information, come back and we're going to dive into this more. Have a great week and we'll connect soon.